Hey YouTube, Alex Conley here. In today's video, I'm going to talk about why I probably wouldn't consider another Western country for permanent residence. So the first reason is kind of obvious, but I'm a US citizen, right? And in the United States, the salary to expense ratio is the best. Out of all the countries in the world, the salaries tend to be the highest in the United States, and that's part of what attracts a lot of people wanting to immigrate. A lot of people want to immigrate to the United States because they believe that they're capable of making more money in relation to the cost of living, in proportion to the cost of living than any other country. So right off the bat, if I wanted to live in a Western country long term, the United States is the most obvious option. I'm a citizen, and it would not require anything really special of me to continue being a citizen of the United States, to continue being a resident of the United States. All the work's been done just by order of me being born in the United States. If you consider, and this is particularly true if you consider living in a high cost of living area where the salary is going to be a lot higher, but living on the cheap, right? So it's possible to live in a place like Bay Area or New York as a single person. Now I'm not talking about family. If you have a partner, a wife, or a husband and multiple children, my analysis is just not going to apply. I'm not doing the math for that kind of situation. But as a single person, you could live, I could live in a place like New York or the Bay Area, work my way up, command a pretty high salary, but live on the cheap. Not own an expensive vehicle, live close to work where it's possible to commute by bicycle or by public transportation. Cook a lot of meals at home where I'm not paying the premium that it costs to eat at restaurants in these high cost of living areas. Avoid purchasing a single family home where I'm paying a premium in property tax, or a condo in New York paying a premium in property tax, maintenance fees, homeowners association fees, a lot of big fees. So, living where the salaries are high, but not adjusting my life expectations or not trying to match my life expectations with the lifestyle of somebody living in like the Midwest or the Southeast. So I think that's something that's unique about the United States, is that somebody without a family to rely on like myself, I could still live in an expensive area, earning a high salary, but reduce my costs through lifestyle choices. Other Western countries tend to tax more heavily than the United States as a proportion of income, and they can tax in ways that are harder to avoid in some circumstances. So if they have a higher income tax in the US, income tax is not really avoidable. Now, you can't, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not getting into the tax laws of suggesting this or that, but let's say for all intents and purposes, just for the sake of this argument, in the United States, you're going to pay, now pretending I'm not giving advice, 40% of your income, whereas in country B, whatever country, you're going to pay 60% of your income. Right there, 20% is a difference. That's assuming the salaries are the same, and et cetera, et cetera. But from my understanding, in many other countries, part of your tax burden is to pay for universal health care and other types of things like public transportation, subsidizing education. And all of these things are certainly a benefit to those countries and societies, but if you're looking at it from a sheer numbers perspective, that is one way in which if you have a lower tax burden in the United States, particularly like in my state of Tennessee, just as an example, most of the taxes in Tennessee are consumption-based. So what that means is we don't have a state income tax, but if you like to consume a lot, if you live in a big home, you're going to pay a lot of property tax. If you like to purchase a lot of goods, you're going to pay a lot in sales tax. If you like to, I'm trying to think of an example. If you like to consume a lot of fast food, you're going to pay sales tax on that. There's a lot of taxes that are based on how much you consume. So now Tennessee is considered low cost of living, but salaries aren't the highest. But that's something to consider, is that United States, in some instances, you have the option to reduce certain lifestyle choices to reduce your tax burden, which seems to be less of the case in some other countries. Got to my next point, I mentioned it before, but like I said, if I want to live in a Western country long term, which I'm not totally decided if I want to live in one or not, there's definitely advantages and disadvantages, but the United States is the most likely option. It doesn't take additional work. I'm not filling out tons of paperwork, immigration paperwork. I'm not doing, special unique background checks. I'm not, learning another language. I'm not proving my knowledge of the history of another country. All these things come with being born in the United States, having a U.S. passport, citizenship, etc. Next, a lot of Western countries have similar problems to each other, and the most obvious one to me is that primarily most Western countries, whether it be United States, Canada, Australia, UK, what else? I don't know, for the sake of the conversation, France, these tend to have relatively high costs of living. So these countries, particularly in the major metro areas, are going to have a high cost of living. You're going to pay a premium for an apartment or a single family home. You're going to pay a premium for a vehicle, whether you're paying a premium on the sales price of the vehicle, you're paying a premium for gasoline. All these things tend to cost a lot of money. So if I were to move to another country and to go to the trouble of moving to another country, one of the biggest advantages in my mind would be lower cost of living, but that doesn't really apply if you're moving to another Western country. You're going to still spend quite a bit in taxes. You're still going to spend quite a bit on various necessities. There may be extra additional taxes, extra costs. Gasoline may be more expensive. It may be more expensive to go out to a restaurant and eat. I don't want to trade one set of problems for a similar set of problems. Now, there may be some other advantages. Some of these other Western countries may have better healthcare systems, or they may have, better public transportation or these types of advantages. But for the most part, the problems that they have are not terribly dissimilar from one another. Moving on. Kind of getting into the dating scenario, Asian men tend not to be regarded very well by women in Western countries. Now, this is something that I've read about, but also that I've kind of had a conversation with my grandma about, actually. So this is not to disparage women. This is not to stereotype or prejudice, but this is my experience just having a conversation with my biological maternal grandmother. She told me that she did not care for, she's Japanese, she did not care for Japanese men because she felt like they have certain types of problems and certain types of attitudes and ways of being and doing and thinking and etc. That did not align with her purpose. So she actually married my grandfather, who's English and Irish, rather than to marry a Japanese man. In the United States, and now I would call my grandmother, even though she's Japanese, also I'd call her American. She's lived in America for about 70 years now. So she's lived 7/9, roughly, I don't know exactly what percentage that would be, like 78% of her life in the United States. So I definitely, when I have questions about these types of things, I look for her expertise and her commentary, and that's kind of what she said. And so definitely I've had better experiences in dating outside the United States. I don't fault American people or American women for this, but that's just been my experience. And according to my grandmother, she's encouraged me also to consider dating outside the United States. So it's not just my perception. Okay. Last couple of points. There's a certain kind of celebrity worship culture in America. Now, I know some viewers will say, well, everywhere, they worship celebrities everywhere. And that may be true to some extent. But the difference comes into conversation with other people. So if I'm having a conversation with a person in another country and they're talking about a Hollywood movie, I can give my honest opinion as an American saying, okay, look, Hollywood provides a lot of entertainment to a lot of people, but it's not a realistic depiction of life in the United States. The average American does not live like that. It's indicative of a very curated type of experience. The movie is designed to entertain you. It's designed to take you out of your normal day-to-day experience. It's not designed to reflect what the average American experience is like. A small portion of America lives in Hollywood, California, where many of these movies are filmed. A small portion of America lives in large, gigantic homes and drives sports cars and has this exciting, wild life. It's not representative of day-to-day life. But if you bring these critiques up to an American person, they may disagree and say, oh, well, that's not my, as experience as an American local, that's not my experience, or that's within the realm of possibility. Everybody, there's a phrase that I hear sometimes, Americans tend to act like temporarily embarrassed future millionaires. So when you say that that's not actually realistic, well, there's a substantial portion of American people that will say, well, that's within my lifetime, I'm going to have that lifestyle. But you don't see that as much in other countries from what I've experienced. You don't see as much focus on being this absolutely exceptional, one-of-a-kind rock star millionaire type person. Now, is there some of that? Certainly. But I find that the average person in non-Western countries tends to have other types of desires or wants or needs than the average individual American. I think that a lot of American people, when they start to realize, not all, but some American people, when they start to realize their life's not going to turn out like a Hollywood movie, it tends to be more discouraging or more harmful to their mental health or psyche than perhaps some people in non-Western countries. And kind of backing this up, I definitely had a really great counselor at one time tell me, he said, it really bothers me when people feel like it's not okay to be normal. I don't know if he was speaking specifically about the United States or just generally speaking, but he said, like, there's nothing wrong with being an accountant. There's nothing wrong with being a mailman. There's not, he's like, a small portion of the population gets to be a rock star or a movie star or a professional athlete. Most of us should be totally okay with being average and normal. And that really has stuck with me through my life, and it's part of why I've explored Asia and why I don't think I would consider living in another Western country, is I feel like some of that same attitude does translate to the lifestyles and attitudes and focuses of some other westernized countries. Finally, a lot of trouble and expenses involved with immigrating. For those who aren't immigrants or not, first or second gen immigrants that aren't directly connected to people that have immigrated, may not be as familiar with the lifestyle changes or the stories. It's expensive. There's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of, you're talking about uprooting your entire life and moving to another country. You may have a home in your home country that has to be maintained. You may have cars that need to be sold. You may have property taxes that need to be paid every year. You may have tenants. If you own a rental property, you may have tenants that need to be taken care of by a management company. You may, you may be leaving family behind. You may have extended family in your home country. I don't have this scenario, but you may have extended family that you have to leave behind. And so these are all things to consider, like before you move from one Western country to another. Are the trade-offs worth it? Are you going to get enough, benefit from the similarities that you would do the undertaking of all this? And it's a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal. You're talking about new laws, new rules, new regulations. Maybe they drive on the different side of the road. Maybe owning a car is out of reach. Like, let's say you live in Hong Kong, you're probably not going to be, driving a whole lot. These are the types of things to consider before you move from one Western country to another. Now, is Hong Kong Western? Not really, but it's definitely a hub of business between Asia and the West. So there's definitely some Western influences there. But yeah, thank you for watching. And my name is Alex Conley. If you enjoy this video, if you want to hear more about these types of topics, let me know what you think down in the comments. If you want to move from one Western country to another, if you want to move from the United States to Australia, you want to move from the UK to Canada, feel free to chime in. Let us know the reasons why. I'd love to have this discussion, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch my video, and I will see you next time.